Hello, this is Knoxville Scrapbook, produced by St. John's Community Video. I'm your host, and our guest today is a veteran flyer and a teacher, a FAA inspector, and a good fellow to be around. Tells a lot of good stories, my friend Elmer Wood. Elmer, it's nice to have you here today.
Glad to be here.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
I guess I ought to preface this, Elmer. Some time ago, wasn't too long ago, I decided to learn to fly at a rather elderly age, I thought. I was about 53 when I started, and I called over to the flying service at Smoky Mountain, and I asked them about flying. And when I talked to Dave Hiltz over there, I called him. I said, now, tell me now, if you think I'm too old to start, why, tell me now. You know, don't just lead me on. And Dave talked to me a few minutes. And he said, well, one of the teachers over here is 72 or 3. And he said, if that's not too old, why, you shouldn't be too old. So I guess you inspired me to start flying. Tell me about you. I mean, where were you born?
Well, out on Powell's River above the Forks of Clinch, you know,
yeah.
Forks of the river up there on the farm. And my mother died when I was 3-year-old, and so, in other words, my grandmother and aunt and things brought me up. And
yeah. Your dad was a farmer out there?
Oh, yeah, he was a farmer and logger. He made 105 trips during rafts to Chattanooga out of those rivers in his lifetime.
On rafts?
Yeah.
Floating down, floating logs down and things like that? Did you ever make that trip yourself?
I only made one down to Kenny Creek over here on a
What'd you haul that time?
We were cross ties. All the logs went to Chattanooga.
Oh, I see. And what kind of, did your dad cut the trees?
Well, he'd raft them for some people, and then they would log them themselves, you see.
And then haul them down there and make rafts.
And they make a raft.
Yeah, haul them down that river.
So anyway, I got tired of going to school. When I was a little over 16-year-old, I just slipped off from home.
What happened to you?
Well, it took me 2 days to walk from home. I stayed in the woods till I got to Jacksboro. I didn't know anyway where I was going. Yeah. So anyway, it took me the next day to walk into Jellicoe on the railroad tracks. I got in there at night and slept down on the bank, and the next morning I got up and...
the Jellicoe?
Yeah. I wanted to join the Army, so I got up and went down the creek and washed up, but what little clothes I had on looked decent. And I went to find out recruiting office. It was behind the post office, in the post office building. So I went around there, and this big old, probably a second lieutenant with these putts and everything on.
Yeah.
I walked in the door to join the Army, and he kicked me out. No kids allowed here. He just shoved me on, and that made me mad.
And you were about 16 then?
16. Yeah. Anyway, on my way, I went around everybody. Going into Jellicoe about 10 miles out, there was a section gang working on railroads, I found out later, putting in new rails. I stayed in the woods. And when he told me that, I got my little old bundle of things, and I said, I'm going to walk to Knoxville. So I got brave then. Went right on by, and here's a bunch of these quarter cars. I guess you know what I mean, where the people work.
Yeah, where they live, yeah.
Cook sitting out there, and I went right on up, and I walked 2 or 3 miles around this gang of working, you see, and I was just brave. Where you going, son? I said, I'm going to Knoxville, get a job. We need a water boy, they said. See the boss.
You got a job as a water boy? How long did you stay? How long did you do that?
Well, I stayed there, and then I got promoted to flagging trains.
Well, that was a big promotion, wasn't it?
I bet it's the best job in the world. So anyway, they got to come to Knoxville every Saturday. In the morning, they'd catch a train free and leave Sunday night. So I come over, and I told Lum Kid was the boss. I told him I believe I'd stay in Knoxville, and that bought me some good clothes.
Yeah, you were in the money by that time. How much were you making then, Albert?
You're making about $2 a day in your boarding room.
Oh, that was pretty good. You put
so anyhow, I knew my cousin was a motorman on a streetcar over here, and my uncle by marriage was a policeman. So I was afraid to hang around town. I didn't figure they'd know me. So anyway, I went to Lonsdale.
Lonsdale was a separate community.
The acid company over there. So I went down and wanted a job, and they said, no, you can unload them acid cars up there for $2 a car.
How long would it take you to unload one of those?
By golly, it'd take me out to get a couple of school kids and give them a dime a piece all day long to unload and stack it.
Oh, that was wood. That was
chested, acid wood. You stacked it in the yard.
Yeah.
Wasn't long till they asked me if I wanted to go down there and roll a wheelbarrow to haul coal from to fire all them furnaces.
You were building some muscles, weren't you?
Yeah, so then they passed a law that you had to register from 18 to 45.
Now, that was about 18, 19, when was it?
About 19 and nearly 19 and 18.
1918, yeah.
So I said, buddy, the recruiting officer's right across from the boarding house there at Lonsdale, a little fire department.
Yeah.
I took the day off and I cleaned up and I went over there and I had my age padded. So I went in there and got everything put down.
Yeah.
When he
you were
got
prepared that day, weren't you?
He said, now, when did you say you'd be 18? I forgot and told him. He said, now I'm going to have to write your dad and get permission, and I'll call you. You come back.
You were
And
born
I knew
in
that was-
1901.
I told him.
Oh.
I had padded my age, you see.
But you forgot.
I was only 16 then.
Oh, I see. And you forgot to add
So I
that.
knew that if he wrote Dad, I went to the boarding house. I sold my bicycle. I had me for $2, and I packed my suitcase. And when they went to sleep, I went out the window and caught a streetcar over to L&N Depot. At that time, there's a hiring bunches to go to Camp Knox, Kentucky, to build Camp Knox. And there's a contract. We pay your way up there, so I caught the train. I worked at everything. I dug ditches. And finally, I got a job of driving a water wagon, furnishing a steam shovel and a road roller with two teams, one ahead of the other. And I'd go down to the pond. That's the best job in the world. I'd seen 2 or 3 Model T trucks run around there, you know, and everything was mules. And I finally found out they was out in a farmhouse out away from the camp. So I went out there one Sunday, and there's a fellow working on it. I said, I'll give you $5 to learn me how to drive that Model T.
that was the first. Well, you'd seen Model Ts, of course.
Oh,
Before,
yeah, but anyway, they had solid tires. He said, well, I'll wait till I get this and finished, and we'll see about it. So we went out, and we drove around. He said, would you like the job? He said, I'll give you a job driving one of these. So I started driving it. He took a fellow with me 2 or 3 days. I must have drove that thing for 3 or 4 months, and I was coming in through a field, just an old drive road, you know, sagebrush and everything around. I looked over and seen an airplane spinning. I'd never seen one in my life. I looked out the door.
That was the first airplane
I'd never
you'd
seen
seen.
it. Anyway, it didn't have no doors on it. You know them old handles you pull down on your Model T? I just walked out and left it go. It didn't look back. I'll bet you I went through briar patches.
Where was this Model T, or this airplane?
It was up at Camp Knox.
Oh, Camp Knox, yeah.
And I said, I'd come to a farm. No, sir, I didn't see no airplane. So finally, I come up on top of a hill. It's getting dusk, and there's a farmer there, and over there was a sloping field. I said, you see an airplane fall? He said, no, sir. He said, it sat down over there, and then it took wings and flew off. It took me till midnight to find that truck, and I was all out of breath, and there's a hunting farm here.
So that was the first one you'd seen?
They had come in there to land on Godman Field, a little old hay field.
Was that a military plane?
Yeah, it was a Army Jenny.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, so it wasn't too long till that whole squadron moved in there. And then I found out that these green headpans were airplanes at the service club. So I started asking them, I want to get where the airplanes are.
Well, you had got into the service for that time?
No.
You were still just working?
I went off and hid when they wouldn't let me register.
Oh, I see.
So I told they said, you've got to have a high school education to get where them airplanes are. These boys did in the service club. You know, they'd come up there at night. I told the boss, I said, I'm going to save $5 a week, get me a high school education. I'm going where them airplanes are. So I'd give him $5 a week. That went on for about, and believe it or not, I never did go down where they were because, you know.
But you were wanting to.
My truck stopped. I come in here to eat this restaurant, and my truck wouldn't start. They still had this dirt road and wood sidewalks, and I went right across that recruiting office to call the boss. I went over there and called him. I said, my truck's, he said, I'll be there in a couple. And I started telling this recruiting officer what I was going to do. He said, you don't need a high school education.
But you thought you did.
He said, I'll have you in there tonight. I said, no, you won't. You're going to put me in a balloon company. I said, I'll tell you what now, buddy. If you put me in the balloon company, I'm leaving you tonight. Well, sure enough, we left right then, and I went on, and I had my uniforms in the 29th Squadron.
29th Squadron.
The boss couldn't find me because I guess he'd left. You know, when he come to try to find me, the recruiting officer's gone.
Well, how many planes did the 29th have, you suppose?
Oh, they had about a dozen.
And how many pilots?
Well, they're just after World War. See, there's nobody enlisted in it yet. I was the first one. It's all.
Oh, I see.
They couldn't get anybody to go in. Anyway, the boss found out where I was finally, and he come over and brought me money on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted me to learn their job so they could get out.
Yeah.
I'd go here, stay a couple of days, and then I'd walk off and leave me, and I'd go somewhere else and try it.
Yeah.
And finally, I liked the MPs. I went over there and I cleaned spark plugs at the hangar for half a day, you know, just skinned my fingers up, you know, and had them all polished. And I come back after dinner, and they were all gone, and I found them in a trash can. So I said, phooey on you.
Well, they had no flyers. They just had the planes.
No, they had pilots, sure.
Oh, yeah.
They're all from World War I.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you know.
But they're getting out and going home, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I wound up, they had a little tent up there, and they had 4 MPs. You put this badge on, and you walk around all over the place down there, just fool around all day. I got up late one morning, and they had everything piled on my bed, you know. I was always a little late to get out and go. I raised up, and a hobnail just barely missed my head there. I said, what son done that? So they jumped up and said, we're going to do that. I pulled the pistol out, and I said, well, I went on out, and they reported me to a mean Lieutenant Scout. Boy, he ate me up alive.
That ends your MP duties?
No, wait a minute. He'd been trying to get me to go in the officers' mess, you know, and be a serve at officers' mess. So anyhow, when 4 o'clock come, I just went through all that stuff down on the table down there and walked out and went to the motor overhaul.
Well, when did you first learn to fly? Where? And
well, we didn't really learn because when you get on flying status, that is a rating, and you get 50% of your base pay, but you fly stick time 4 hours a month. You're not allowed to fly by yourself.
But you got to fly some, though, when you were in the flying service there in the Army.
Well, only stick time.
Yeah.
Yeah, only stick time.
What do you mean by stick time now?
They had what they call a flying status. It was a rating.
Yeah.
You got 50% of your base pay if you went up and spent 4 hours a month in the airplane or flying with somebody else.
With somebody else.
Yeah,
But didn't necessarily mean you had to pilot the plane by yourself then.
No, you couldn't. The other was pilot status. This was flying status.
Oh, I see. But you did get some time in, and you learned to fly first there, didn't you?
Yeah. So then they put up an order that they're going to split up and go to Langley Field and Aberdeen Proving Ground. And Lieutenant Taylor, I liked him because I said, Lieutenant, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Aberdeen. I'll be out in a couple of months. He said, now, if you want to go there, put it on Langley Field. Mm-hmm. Well, I put my name on Langley Field, and they sent me to Aberdeen.
Well, now, what was there now? What did you do there?
Aberdeen, I went in the engine overhaul, which I didn't know anything about, you know. And everybody was camped. Every branch in the service was camped here in one common camp. But you had to ride a passenger train to go out to the airport and all. You see, it's all restricted. You'd ride out there in the morning, come back at noon, go back up.
How far away was that then?
Oh, I guess the grass strip we used was about 5 miles or 6.
And then they still had those old Jennies out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they put up, you see, the pilots that were in World War, by the time we got there, they'd promised some of those pilots if they'd enlisted as enlisted men, they could still fly on their part-time reserve. Mm-hmm. So they put an order on the bulletin board, said all the enlisted men want to fly, report to air supply so-and-so at 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, I got up there at 12 o'clock. I wanted to be sure and get in the hangar. I knew the whole squad would be there.
Yeah.
Well, only 8 of us showed up.
They didn't have as many volunteers as they thought then.
So anyway, we'd done some ground school, and this captain that was over the engine overhaul come to me one day, and he said, I've got a chance to send one fellow from here to Kellyfield to the Air Service Mechanic School, and I've picked you. Mm-hmm. He said, now, in 90 days, they're going to quit all this enlisted flying. He said, I'm going to tell you they're going to quit it. So I took his word for it, and they quit it in 30 days.
So you did get some flying in. But then when you got up there,
I had to go. I went through the engine mechanic school at Kellyfield. That's what they call the technical school. Then I was assigned to Marchfield.
Yeah.
Then I went through all the aircraft's overhaul and repair out there, part-time.
Yeah. And they were still just, about the only thing they had was those Jennies.
That's right.
They were...
well, we had the de Havillands and a couple of other airplanes. You got 48 hours of primary instruction at Marchfield in a Jenny, if you passed.
That was a Jenny. Tell me what a Jenny was.
Well, it was just history, just what they call the old Jenny. Just the old,
it had 2 wings.
It was a biplane, open biplane.
And had
with
2 cockpits in it.
Yeah, just 2 cockpits.
2 people could ride it. Yeah. How strong an engine that was in this now?
Oh, they started using Hispano-Suizes, 150 horsepower.
150, well, that was pretty good.
They used OXs before the war, during the war, but they put that in.
And in those now, you were wearing parachutes?
No, they didn't have parachutes then. They didn't know what a parachute was.
Is that right? They hadn't come along with them. All right. Then after that, what did you do in the flying service?
Well, we stayed there a year, and then went back to Kellyfield, and I went in the. You see, they keep busting them up, you know.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to improve them, of course. Do you remember any famous people that you flew with then?
Well. You've heard of Hap Arnold.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was our major commanding officer in the 29th Squadron at Godman Field. He was a lazy son of a gun.
Was he really?
Well, I kept telling these people I wanted to learn to fly, and they said, well, you see, the officers' quarters was up in this old 2-story building in their mess. They said, just go up and see the commanding officer. Tell him you want to learn to fly. So I went in there, and his toes were sticking out from under the cover. And I tickled his toes, and he jumped up and said, he could see I was just a little farm boy. I said, down. I told him what all of it. He said, well, I'll see what we can do about that. He talked to me for 30 minutes. Well, during this big cadet program out here, I was flying 350 hours a day on all those 10 air cadets. Well, he was going to come down there. And I was busy, and I looked up, and I seen all this gang of cadets, and they motioned for me to come up there, and up there was General Arnold, Hap Arnold.
That was many years later.
Oh, he was over all the Air Force then, during the war.
During the Second World War.
He was a big shot.
Yeah, that's the Second War.
And they introduced me to him, and I said, do you remember at Godman Field, that little farm boy coming up in your room one day and tickling your toe and saying, I wanted to learn to fly? Didn't come in there to wash dishes. I thought that old man was busted.
Do you remember it?
He remembered. He couldn't forget it.
Okay, now let's go on the flying. How much longer did you stay in the flying service?
I stayed in there 3 years. Now, the idea was they didn't want pilots. They didn't have no room for
Oh,
them.
yeah.
If you got your 48 hours of Virginia time, primary they called it, then you went to Kelly Field and got 48 hours in DHs, advanced, and then you were mustered out. Kicked plumb out of there. You was all through.
Well, that's all they had. They didn't
So
have
I come
anything else
out better by going through all of their mechanic schools and all of that.
When you came out of flying service, then what'd you do? You come on back home?
I come back here, I decided the airplanes weren't going to be worth anything. You know, you can't haul corn in a tube-holed airplane, so I wanted to be a railroad engineer. And I come over here and started working for Oliver King over here at San Lam Company on South Knoxville.
Yeah.
And I'd go to the rail yards every week. And finally, they had a railroad strike in 1922, and they wanted me to come then.
Oh, yeah.
See Southern. So I finally come to the conclusion there's more people wanted on the railroad than was already on, so then I took off and forgot about that.
So you gave up the railroad.
I worked for the War Department engineers while they were surveying North Dam in 1923. Then I went to Detroit.
And that's when you started flying again, was
I started a little bit as I could. You couldn't get to fly. I'd go out there and I was working in Detroit.
Well, where were they flying around Knoxville in those days?
They had a place up here where, Bearden.
Oh, yeah, down on Southern Avenue.
Grass strip there. Then they had a grass strip over here. They had a bunch of old Jennies, but they were rotten. I'd go up there and look at them, and I was afraid to even fool with them. They didn't have to have lights.
You didn't have a plane yet. Had you bought a plane yet?
Oh, no. It was a long time before I got a plane.
Where'd you get your first plane?
In Detroit, 19.
Oh, that's after you went up to Detroit then.
34. I bought my first airplane in 34.
What was it?
An OX Traveler. That's the one I started barnstorming.
Oh, yeah. And where'd you find it in Detroit? Did you buy it new? Or?
No, the depression is on. This fella had it up there, and he couldn't pay the rent on it. He said, you take it if you crack it up. Forget it. If you can pay me for it, go ahead. So
where'd he have it? In a hangar or something?
It's in a hangar.
Yeah. And did you have to repair it or what?
No, it was in good shape.
Is that right? And then what'd you do with that?
We went out and put on shows till we got down in Mississippi and weren't making any money, and then I just started barnstorming, carrying passengers, forget about putting on air shows.
Oh, but you'd already learned, where'd you learn your aerobatics now to put on these air
I
shows?
learned them up there in Detroit when we got those little fleets.
Oh, tell me about that. We have some pictures on that, don't we?
Yeah, you take fellas like myself and Tom Kitchen and Ferris Thomas, we had to learn ourselves to fly. We didn't have no deal at all. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You had to get out and learn yourself.
I guess you taught, somebody teach you the basics of some of the aerobatics.
Basics nothing. You had 3 hours of deal and nobody ever teach you how to do a steep turn. That's all nothing. Took that little airplane right up there.
Let's take a picture. Let's take some of these pictures and you look at the monitor and tell me something.
Now that number 2 airplane up there is the really one I trusted. Them old OX-5s were weak and they was afraid to fool it. Number 2 from the top.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at that first up there, and you can tell us what it is. And look at the monitor now, and when tell us what the plane was, and maybe you can tell us some of the stories about what you did with it. But this is now. Can you see that one?
Now that's the Stinson. That's the one I flew an air taxi out of Detroit up there for about a year and a half. We flew all weather. We didn't have nothing in there but a needle and ball.
You didn't have a radio or anything?
Nothing. We just flew all weather on air taxi service.
And where were you hauling people from, Elmer?
Air taxi, just like they do trips, taking them places.
Oh, I see. By charter, sort of like charter.
We call it charter now.
How many people could you carry?
You could carry 3 people in it, besides the pilot.
3 people besides the pilot. Did you stay pretty busy?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever fly across the lakes, the Great Lakes for that thing?
Yeah, you weren't allowed to fly airline, but I've flown across Lake Erie and Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
I carried the first air mail out of the Upper Peninsula in that airplane there.
Is that right? Mm-hmm.
Out of Escanaba.
Escanaba, Michigan.
Yeah.
You flew the. Well, was it a regular thing, or you just?
No, it was just a publicity. I went up there with just one of those things that I was to carry the first official air mail out of it.
Okay, bring that next picture on now, and let's see it now. Elmer, watch the monitor there. Who was paying for this? Who was paying you for this to fly this plane?
The American Airlines owned the plane, and this boss they had two, and he leased them from them.
I see.
They paid him they paid him a commission for flying them.
Uh-huh.
They actually owned the airplane.
What about this plane here?
Okay, now when Jack Stinson went broke, he had a bunch of OX-5s. This company organized and bought 3 of those new fleets out of Buffalo.
Now, is that an open cockpit plane
open cockpit.
Now, is this something like the planes that Lindbergh was flying the mail in?
No. This is a later airplane.
Oh, it is. I see.
Anyway, it was stressed to 11.5 to 1 Gs, and they built it to try to sell it to the Air Force for a trainer, and they didn't buy
I
it.
see.
Well, I took a look at that thing when we got them. This company at Farm gave us each 24 shares of stock. And I said, it won't come apart, and I'm going to learn to fly that thing. So I went down to this old farmer, and I said, I want to borrow a plow line. He said, Elmer, what's a plow line? I said, well, it's something you steer mules down there with. He said, no. He said, well, I've got a holder out here. Will it be all right? So I got a holder, and I got my belt getting tied, and I tied myself in with that thing.
Well, weren't they using safety belts in those days?
They had safety belts, but I figured the airplane wouldn't come apart. If I didn't fall out of it, I was going to learn to fly it.
I see. You were tying yourself in with the plow line.
So I went up there and I tried something. It didn't work. Now that's the airplane right there that I learned aerobatics myself in.
Well, somebody gave you some basic idea.
No, nobody told you nothing.
How to do a roll.
No, you just got up there and they didn't show you how to do a steep turn or nothing.
Now, basically, compare that plane, say, with something like the Cessna 150 now. Cessna 150, they say, well, if you sort of turn it loose, it'll sort of come back to itself. Now, this one, you had to fly it all the time.
Yeah, the biplanes, you had to fly them, especially them older ones. You had to fly them all the time. You never could relax.
You couldn't.
You
wouldn't stabilize itself when you turn it loose.
That's
right. Or coming out of a spin or something like that.
No, you had to fly them things. They'd fall a while, fly while them old airplanes would, you know.
Now that one you were using for an air taxi. Now that was a much more stable plane.
It was what it called that is a real supposed to be a real.
How fast was it?
110. You could figure on 110.
110 miles, and it landed about how speed landed?
Oh, it was skim at 60. I had to know what it was if you was coming down feeling for the ground where you'd skim it instead of flying into it. If you was coming down.
It was a tail dragger, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but let's see another one there now. Oh, now here's some planes. Now you recognize those?
Now that's the top one is a primary trainer. We give them 35 hours of primary training. Then they went into this one for aerobatics. We had 2 of them. We had 3 aerobatic airplanes. They got 48 hours of aerobatics.
Now this was during the Second World War, wasn't it?
That's right. I had a contract to train all kinds of instructors and everything. I trained everything.
And they brought that was here in Knoxville area.
In Knoxville, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Show us those next 2 now.
Now then, the next one down there.
Just a minute. Now we got 2 more pictures of those same ones, Elmer. That was during what years was this?
We started in '39, and I got contract for all of their programs.
And then these men went from here to the.
Well, some of them went. We finished them out. We picked the best from starting Lexington, Kentucky, Richmond, Virginia, back through Birmingham and Memphis, and they shipped them in here. The boys that had been selected from the aerobatic program, and then I put them in a barracks, put them through an airline cross-country course, and then more aerobatics, and then went out as full-fledged pilots.
I see.
We picked the bunches from the aerobatic pilots.
Oh, I see.
I had a barracks over there, and we kept them in it.
Over where the airport is now?
It was back on my property over there. I had a barracks where we kept them all.
Is that right? You had your own. How much of a runway did you have over there, Elmer?
Oh, that was where the barracks was.
Oh, I see.
In the classrooms. We used the airport.
Oh, I see. I see. Now there's 2 more planes there.
Now, those 2 there are the ones we used for the airline cross-country course. The instructor.
What were they now?
The upper one was a Waco Custom, and this one's a Stinson SR-9C. We took 3 students at a time and the instructor on the airline cross-country course.
Yeah.
On that one.
And that was the advanced courses.
Yeah, we took 3 students at a time.
Instrument. Elmer, I couldn't help but...
Navigation is what it was, and we had the old rotable loop radios then. You didn't have none of this stuff like we got now.
Oh, yeah, well, they didn't have control towers either, did they?
No, didn't have no control there.
But anyway, you used those to train the fellows during the Second World War. Oh, I want to talk to you some more about your barnstorming days. You were telling me one time about how you lost that finger. Tell our
I was cranking the propeller and pulled it through here like it kicked out and come back and unjointed it.
That was back in the days before they had self-starters.
Of course, that is down in Alabama.
Yeah, and you were out barnstorming and taking people for rides and everything, yeah. And go ahead and tell me about it. You told me about what happened.
Well, I'd been flying over in that mining town all day, and I come right in where we was camped, and these people come up and wanted to ride. I didn't want to, so I decided I'd crank it.
Nobody to help you, huh?
No, he done jointed him. The doctor said if it had hit up here, just been a cut. So I went down to Birmingham Hospital, and they said, sit down here in the hallway. I had it all wrapped up, and I sat there for about 30 minutes, and I got aggravated, so I went in there and I said, what are you going to do? So he took me back there, and he said, I can save them fingers now. I believe, he said, they're just done jointed. I said, how long before I can fly? He said, 5 months. I said, how long if you cut them off? He said, 5 weeks. I said, cut them. This is up in the night, you know. So anyway, I got up the next morning, and I asked this nurse where my clothes was. I went, she ain't going nowhere. You're not going anywhere. You got to stay here. So I got up. I told them to come after me, see. After I got home, see, my driver and all them had come in to the camp where we was at by the time I left. So I got up in my hospital clothes, and I went up to the cashier. I said, lady, do you want to give me my clothes, or do you want to keep them for what I owe you? I'm leaving here. So she stuttered around there a little bit. She got behind her, she said, you owe me $75. I said, you can have my clothes over there. I'm leaving here. I'll pay you cash and get out of here. So I walked out.
Well, what were you charging the people to take them up?
75 cents a passenger.
75 cents a passenger.
And we averaged, a lot of times I'd get gasoline free for quite a while for advertising.
Oh, you put their name
about 8, 9, 10 cents a gallon.
That's all you're paying for gasoline then?
We really had good days.
How many could you take up? 2 at a time?
Two at a time, $1.50. And you had to hump it to make $135 in one day.
Well, most of them, I guess, would want you to fly them down over their farm.
No, it was just right up and around the field.
You didn't take any?
We used to charge them, get them up.
How high would you?
Just high enough to clear the tree, just around and come back in.
Get their money's worth.
That's the best time we ever had. My family moved. We'd move every week.
Yeah. Well, how would they move on ahead of you, or how?
No, I had a trailer home that I built in '33.
I see.
They'd just move on. We'd go pick the places. We'd move the trailer in where we was going to fly Sunday, get the field ready. Then we'd go over here and fly on Saturday, come back and fly there Sunday.
Well,
the average place wasn't good for Saturday and Sunday, you know, or they'd all wait till Sunday to ride.
Well,
then we'd move the next week.
Well, you just go to a farm, or would you pick it out from the air, or how?
No, we'd just get out in the country and hunt for a place out in the country where there'd never been an airplane. We wouldn't go to town. Get as far out in the country as you could, and they'd ride all day just as fast as they could ride.
And then what? Tell me how you'd work it. Go ahead and tell me about that.
We'd just take the car and drive out and use these show cards with watercolor. Just get out there and find a place.
And then you go around and put your signs up all around. Would you try to put on an air show?
No, not after we quit the show. I would, sure. I'd put on a little show, but you wouldn't have to. They'd always be there to ride.
They'd know that there was an airplane in the neighborhood.
They'd cover you up.
Did you have much competition? Were there others?
No other competition nowhere. You never seen another airplane.
Is there?
They'd come in ox wagons with ox down there in Alabama and stay all day long and come and bring their feed. It'd be raining, they'd stand there and walk up with their good clothes on, step in that seat and sit down on it and come back and line up again. You've never seen anything like it, right in the Depression.
That was fun, wasn't it?
But if we'd have went to them little towns, we wouldn't have made anything.
Well, did you ever have many emergencies during those days of flying?
Not many. We kept the airplane up in good shape. You know.
Well, being a mechanic, you'd spend a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
Have you had many accidents?
No, I've never had any to amount to anything. That water accident looks like it, but it just quit and it didn't go on its back.
Let's get a picture of that. Let's have the camera pick that up. Some pictures there of that airplane accident you had. No, it's over. It's in the water there. I think.
These boys bought that airplane.
It's in the second line there.
They'd cleared out the Allen Airport, and Tom Kesson had rebuilt it all the way through.
Well, when was this now, Elmer?
In about 1938, and his all himself. So these two students of mine bought the thing, and I knew they couldn't fly it, so I went over there to fly it out for them. They had the woods on this end of the island then. And when I come out of there, we just conked out, and I put it in. So we got it out.
Well, we'll get this picture, and then we'll describe it. There it is. Now there's a picture of the airplane in the water.
Yeah.
And it was up the Allen Airport, and
right opposite the water plant. I come down there, and of course the river's there, and I landed in that eddy.
Yeah.
And the boys didn't know their airplane was in the river, so they come on down there and seen it. So the They took a railroad over there, and we got it up in the woods there and took it all apart and hauled it
Well,
back.
did it ruin the plane?
Oh, no, it didn't hurt anything. Just broke one end of the propeller. We took it back over there and put it together.
Is that right?
Got another old wooden propeller and put on it, and I took it out, and it quit again on me out there, and I put it on the side of a hill down there.
And you took it back up the aisle in the airport? Now,
No,
here's a
over
picture. Here's a picture.
Over at the municipal airport where we took it.
Oh, I see. Now, here's a picture of you in the water, and this is when you're pulling it out, and I see some rowboats back there, and they're pulling.
Anyway, I landed down there, and as soon as I got on the ground, we could never figure out what was wrong with it. Up, it started idling, so I tacked it up on top of the hill, and here they come. So we went and got a sawhorse and got the tail up.
Yeah.
He opened the engine up. I knew there's something wrong with it. It just died dead. There's some dust in the back of that gas tank when you got in level flight. Shut the gas off.
And that's what stopped it from
I
running.
said, boys, I'm through with it. Take your wings. They took the wings off, hauled them up the airport. Just before dark, I seen them come with the fuselage, and they cranked it up. And I could see that tail skid, you see, didn't have no wings on it. The texted, I heard him open it up, and then I heard ka-thump. They rolled it all over that airport with no wings on it. Just rolled the center section down. Everybody thought it got away from it, rolled in a ditch down there where I landed it. So that ended their airplane.
And they ruined it for good.
Oh, yeah.
They never were able to.
They sold it. It's been easy to fix, but they had to do it.
I guess that sort of scared them out. Yeah. How many airplanes do you suppose you've owned in your lifetime?
I don't have. I could figure them out. I guess if I just went back and thought about it.
Elmer, how long can you keep flying legally? I mean,
as long as you can pass your.
Is that right? I mean, there's no age limit on flying.
Oh no. Well, if you might come up with some little thing, you could get waivers, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you experience, I don't know how.
But you're still teaching and still. Giving the examination for a pilot's license, aren't you?
I've never failed a physical.
I want to talk to you about your home belt. You've got anybody that's been over to over there around the airport's probably seen that. It's Smoky Mountain Hangar. What do you call that?
The Hillbilly. They want to name it the Hillbilly.
And who designed it, and where'd you get that?
Nobody. I just built it. I didn't design it.
Did you have any plans for it?
No. I just started building.
Oh.
I just started looking and building.
Let's get some pictures of that home built there. Start up at the top and
I'd fool with them old
after we get this on the monitor here, I want you to take a look at the monitor and tell us what. Can you see it over there on the monitor?
Yeah.
Can you see that? I think that's the fuselage.
Yeah, the fuselage. That's it before any fairings or anything's on it.
Yeah.
It's welded steel tubing.
You had to have something to go by, didn't you?
No. I just said I wanted so long and so wide, and I started building it.
Without any aeronautical engineer advice or anything?
I said nothing.
Oh,
I didn't need that, huh?
Okay, let's go down to the next one now. I think this is the wing section that we're coming up here. Now, you didn't have any plans for those wing sections?
Well, what I done, I took 4 Luscombe wings and took them all apart. All these ribs. I just unriveted everything.
I see.
And piled them up in the corner, and I built my wings with metal ribs.
From
I didn't want any wooden wings.
Okay,
but I still had to design the overall.
Yeah. How many hours you suppose you put in on this plane, Elmer?
It took me a year and a half, and I worked pretty solid at it from 30th of May up until the 1st of November. 2 times, because the son and them take care of the private students, after we finished the RTC boys.
Oh, you started...
We were contracted for the RTC boys here.
But you were, this is just a sort of a hobby then. You'd work after you got through, up in the afternoons after you got through
No,
teaching.
you couldn't get it done. We had to fly when them RTC boys come out. But I worked on that solid from May until... And Ray and them took care of what few private students we had, you see.
Oh, I see.
They took care of that.
Your son's a pilot too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's captain on Piedmont.
On Piedmont.
Yeah.
Does he? Where's he fly?
Washington. He flies here to Washington.
From Knoxville to Washington?
That's been his run for quite a long time.
Oh yeah. So did you solo him? Did you?
Yeah, I put him all the way through everything.
Yeah.
He instructed for me for 5 years.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's see that next one there. We want to see this the hillbilly here that Elmer Wood.
That's not a very good picture. I've got a lot. I don't know how. I must have got the whole wrong package of pictures over there.
Well, we can see this pretty good. Now let's just go on to the other one now. This just carries 1 passenger, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just one place.
After you got it all finished, now you weren't sure it was going to fly. How'd you test it? What'd you do? What would a fellow do with a plane here that's
well,
never been proven?
I knew enough about it from old airplanes. I knew it would fly.
Yeah. Well, did you take it out there and run it up and down the field?
Yeah, a little bit, but you have to take the first flight. The FAA has to come in. They give you an airworthiness certificate to take it around the field 1 time.
Oh.
If you don't make it, If you do make it, then they'll give you one that you can fly your test on at 50.
Yeah, well, that's not... Well, now, did you just, say, take it up 2 or 3 feet off the ground first few times?
I did on the field, but they didn't know it, and then I let it down. I knew it would fly.
But then the next time you took it up and took off in the air and around the airport and back down.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, let's go to the next one now. The home built, I guess that's all we got on that. Let's take a break right here now, Elmer, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more about modern flying. We'll stop right here, and we'll be back in a few minutes with our guest today, Elmer Wood. And you'll be back with us. We're going to talk some more about modern airplanes and techniques of instruction. So we'll Elmer, we were talking earlier about there was a brief time there between the First World War and when public in general started getting interested in flying again. Because you said you yourself didn't think that it was going to go.
No. It was, after Lindbergh crossed the ocean, it just boomed everywhere.
People...
Everybody got interested in halfway.
Where were you then, Elmer?
Detroit. I was in Detroit.
Still flying. You were flying this service there that...
No, this was at the time that started, I was driving an armored car. See, I worked up in the factory overhaul and factory service where they built trucks. Then I drove an armored car for about a year and a half.
And
on Sundays, I'd wind up, get our money in all put in the vaults maybe at 1 o'clock Sunday morning, and then I'd take off to the airport to try to get a little flying time. And the boss that owned the place would run the 2 runs we had on Sunday afternoon. I mean, he'd stand by in emergency.
That was before Lindbergh, sir.
That was just about the time that he'd come along. Anyway, I spent a year and a half to get 4 hours and 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah. Well, tell me about what happened after Lindbergh.
Well, everything started booming. A lot of crooks come up and they'd sell you a whole lot of flying programs to go to this little town and run a big ground school, charge you $25 a piece, and say we're going to learn, and then they'd take off. They'd just
take
all over the country. Yeah. And it was pitiful. Back then, we didn't have no airspeeds, no compasses, no nothing. You learned to fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
And today, the people that are learning by numbers and getting too smart, technical, they'll say, now this is this. If they lose their numbers, they're gone. You've got to have a certain amount of feel.
Yeah.
Say you take out here, and you're flying through thunderstorms, which I've flown through an awful lot of them. You get in there, and if you wait till something happens before you correct it, you're going to get the awfulest ride. You've got to feel that thing coming and stop it before it gets there. I mean, that's the technique that you use. You see, feel it.
You do it automatically.
Use your head. You do it subconsciously.
Yeah, well,
imagine yourself going up there and you're getting in there and it whizzes you up like this. Well, it's there and I'm going to bring it back. You don't do that because you'd be out through the roof. You know, I mean, that's you don't get too smart with an airplane.
Yeah. Well, now when you were teaching them back in those days, you sat. Now, where did the student? Was he in the front or the back?
The instructor always sat in the front of them. But we trained in Detroit, and the students in the back used hand signals. You couldn't talk to them. You'd give hand signals. You see what I mean? And they soloed them from the back, and the instructor sat up front.
Yeah.
And all the OXs too. You know, he'd sit up in the front.
They had some ground school. How much ground school would you?
Didn't get any. You just had 10 questions on your written results. And if you had 10 hours of solo, that's all you need. The inspector say, go fly it, and I'll give you a ticket. Yeah. He wouldn't ride with you.
Oh, he didn't ride with you?
Oh, no, he wouldn't get about it.
he didn't have too much faith in those students,
I took my private, my commercial, and my transport pilot certificate. I only made 3 landings, 1 for each one of them.
Is that right?
No test.
And they didn't give you any questions in those days?
10 questions. They'd give you 10 essay questions. They'd read them over, turn them up, and throw them in the trash can, and say, okay, go on and fly there.
And then
a little pamphlet about 15 pages.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
That was the regulations.
Yeah, I've seen that book, yeah.
Yeah, have you? The entire regulations.
Yeah, and the questions and what you expected to know.
The biggest majority of airplanes were unlicensed new at the time. You didn't start that in 1926. licensed airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
And it took them a long time to round them up. You could go ahead and fly unlicensed airplanes all over
Well,
commercially.
of course, they didn't have any air maps at that time, but you used road maps and things like that.
That's right. You just use Rand McNally road maps.
Yeah. How far did you ever fly using the old road map technique?
Well, we flew all the time when we flew air taxi up there. We used them all the time. You see,
use a road map.
Yeah, that's all they had then. They didn't have any other charges.
And what about weather in those days?
We didn't pay any. We didn't ask nobody. We just went till we hit it and keep going.
Yeah, and then you try to fly under it or fly over it. And did you ever get far lost up there in those days?
No, I never got lost.
Is that right?
Wouldn't pay to get lost.
Yeah, but when you're over and you need to get in and without some instrument.
You just come down and hunt the ground and then hunt the airport.
And just took a chance on it.
We had a needle and ball that we used up here.
And of course you use that to make sure your wings are level.
Yeah, we do our turns and level. And then we had this one-hand altimeter. When it got down here to 6,000 feet, it didn't tell you anything much. You see. You just come down till you found the ground and then go hunt the airport.
And you come down through those clouds and start looking for it.
Strictly by compass. You didn't have no heading indicators or anything. You just figured out a compass course and flew it in time.
Yeah. And just estimated about where you were.
Yeah,
of course, there weren't a lot of mountains in this country.
Not up in there, they weren't, no.
But people were flying in the mountains with that same.
They went around them back then in them days with the airlines. They didn't have any way of navigating. See.
Of course, I've read some of the old stories about
They went around all the time. They had their routes cut around, you know.
Some of the old stories about some of those early mail planes where they built bonfires to guide them and things like that.
Well, they later put up on beacon lights.
Yeah, but early days,
they
used bonfires. Lindbergh, I think, flew
a little bit,
some mail planes, didn't he?
Yeah, the first 40 of the first 48 mail pilots that started got killed, you know.
Is that
That's
right?
history.
Is that right?
They didn't have nothing to go by. Just
throw that mail in there.
That's right.
Did you? You never did any other mail hauling other than that?
Except to pioneer out of the Upper Peninsula from Escanaba to Detroit.
And then after you came down here, then you started teaching, and then.
Well, we barnstormed for 3 years, you know, traveled all over. We'd go down Alabama in the winter, come back up in the mountain summer, anywhere from Pennington Gap down to Mobile. I just kept moving. And
I see.
We'd come up here in the summer and fly in the hills and go back in there.
Well, what do you see that's out ahead for aviation for just people that the average person?
It's going to take a bunch of money. It's getting plumb out of sight.
You mean to learn
the cost of flying? You've got to have quite a bit of money to own an airplane, and the only salvation that I can see is for a group of people to buy an airplane and form a club.
Yeah, club flying. Yeah.
That's going to be the way. The people that haven't got the money to fly.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the people that can't afford it. They just get a club and get it down there to where they can just. That's the only. When this GI flying, veterans thing is going to wind up a couple of years.
Yeah.
When it's over with, there's going to be more airplanes for sale all over the United States. These big schools that's got them, they're going to try to dump them at the same time. They're going to have to.
A lot of men have learned now. In order to get the GI flying, they have to be. They get the private pilot on their own, and then they get the commercial flying through the GI. Of course, now commercial flying at one time they didn't have to have too much instrument flying, but now it's they have to have a lot of instrument flying.
Well, they've got two rules. If you're under the old approved school, then you don't have to have the instrument rating to get a commercial. But under the new one, you have to have an instrument to get the commercial. On Part 61 with no rules, then you must have a 250 hours an instrument rating to get a commercial. Now, if you haven't got the instrument rating, you limit it. You put a notation on their ticket that revenue passengers are prohibited beyond 50 nautical miles or at night. That restricts them without an instrument rating. So they can still get a commercial without the instrument.
Yeah, of course, you're giving examinations for these people. Have you had many scares from students?
No, they don't never scare me because, you know, if you're always ahead of everything, which you've got to be in it. Like I told you, you don't never want to get too cocky with an airplane. Because they'll still get you down the water, you see. You want to use common sense.
You mean these students that get you up there and get you into a spin, that doesn't get your blood pressure up a little bit?
They never worry me.
You don't get excited about
it? Never does, because you're not supposed to do that. It don't never bother me.
I think I gave you a little scare once, but
No,
I don't want you to tell about it. But,
You don't scare me. I've been around too much.
and
No students, the thing I was going to say is, we didn't get to go to school out there. You know, you had to work in the farm all the time, and you'd walk 5 miles to school and back, and when you got out, you could maybe subtract 2 from 4. And when I went away, I didn't have any education. And then since I had to learn myself to fly, I really enjoy teaching people to fly because I didn't have that advantage.
Well, I think, too,
I felt like I was cheated because now I feel like I'm seeing them learn, and I had to do it myself.
Yeah.
And it gets pretty rough, buddy.
Yeah, but there's a lot of this high schools and colleges, of course, now teaching. And did you think that there would be more people flying by this time than there are? I mean, say after
I
the
didn't
Second
think
World
so.
War,
Now, when they opened the airport up here, Hodges Briscoe, I was Barnstorm. He wanted me to stay here through the summer and help him through the week, you know, this particular summer, and go Barnstorm over the weekend. He said, we'll move out to Municipal Airport, that new one.
Yeah.
Well, the National Guard, they leased that place to them down there, thinking it was going to open. Well, they come in there, and they said we could stay there, so we decided to go down to Griffin, Georgia, and Barnstorm that winter.
Yeah.
So, and come back up here. Guess how many airplanes there were in Knoxville when we moved out to Municipal Airport?
I can't imagine, honey.
11.
Is that all?
We moved out there.
Of course, there were no airlines come through then, were there?
There's 2 or 3 over here.
Were they?
And there, no. Well, American Airlines come through with that old Stearman airmail plane and landed at the Allen Airport.
Is that right?
We moved over there with 3 airplanes and 2 gas drums, 50-gallon gas drums, and a toolbox, and you could have bought all 3 of the airplanes for $2,500 in one lump. Now, that's the way we opened Municipal Airport. You won't believe that.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
All their self, no tires, no nothing.
Well,
Now look at it.
How were you making a living then?
They just covered us up with students and carrying pressures on Saturdays and Sunday. We just couldn't keep them up.
Yeah.
Just kept you going. I mean, they just covered us up with students.
Yeah. Did you ever?
7 days a week.
Did you ever fly ambulance service and stuff like
I
that?
flew
Have you ever
3.5 years for Cherokee on air taxi.
Yeah.
And air ambulance.
And over at Cherokee, there's a flyer over there that's older than you, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I flew for him, you see.
Did you?
Tom.
Tom Kesterson,
Yeah.
He flew up till just recently.
We flew everywhere. He quit when I left him over there about 4 or 5 years.
But he's not flying anymore.
No,
though,
he
is
wouldn't fly anymore.
But he's still in good health and pretty
Oh, we
sharp
flew
guy.
all the way there, all over the country.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I sort of felt that it was your feeling, though, that by this time, that there'd be more people and aviation would be more common, I mean, for the common man than it is right now.
it's more business people now that own airplanes.
Yeah.
Business people that can afford it. And it's like I said, the little guy, unless he belongs to a club, is kind of on the spot.
It's just too expensive, isn't it, to
Yeah, you
own an
take,
airplane and maintain it, because the
Maintenance costs you $15 an air.
For-
And if you want to go out and get an air deal in a 150 Cessna, it's going to cost you $26 for 1 air.
mm-hmm.
You run your airplane into maintenance, it costs you $15 an air for maintenance. Now, the average person, working person, it's just pretty hard for him to stand.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the field's full of airplanes.
Yeah,
Every
but
time you
it's-
build a new ramp, it covers them up out there.
it's,
Where are they coming from?
Well, it's because it's one of the most exciting things that hobby that anybody could ever get into. Because before I went over there, I was like 53 years old,
You
and
take
I had
section-
never tried it before. And to me, it was one of the most
You
exciting
take
things I'd ever
Section
tried.
Aviation, Smoky Mountain out there, they've sold a bunch of new airplanes.
Yeah.
182s, 310 Cessnas,
Well, there was a
402s.
little recession
I mean,
there
expensive airplanes.
when the gasoline got tight there.
Yeah, that
I
gave
think
them a
that
tight
scared
spot.
people out a little bit, and probably some of the people sold the planes and they never did get back.
No,
and
little-
you live right there by the runway too,
I
don't you?
joined the airport.
Yeah, that's great that you're close enough that you can see every plane takes off. So
Yeah.
even if you quit flying, you'll be right there at it. And,
Yeah, I'm right on it.
and you got that Jaguar sports car revved up out there. Oh, that's another thing. You were in the automobile racing too,
Yeah,
weren't you?
yeah.
I'd forgotten to.
Yeah, we've been working at that for quite a while. The boys moved over to Pell over there, and I don't get to be with them much anymore. Too far away.
Have you any interest in race cars anymore?
Well, supposed to have an interest, but I just thought I'd let them have mine. I can't follow them around. They travel so much, and I just can't follow them around.
Where did you race? Did you ever drive any yourself?
I drove some, yeah.
Yeah.
They run at the half-mile track at Kingsport, and up here at Bulls Gap and Rogersville.
Stock cars, yeah.
Yeah. They've built some real nice tracks in there.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't chase them around.
But
They
you
won
still,
the championship year before last and won a lot of races last year.
your partners,
I know now they're building an engine that the block and the heads cost $3,000 and the pistons and the rest of it.
Well, that's sort of leaving the common man out too, isn't it? That
Well, no, you make it. You've got to make it if you keep a race car.
There's enough money in it to pay for it. Yeah.
They pay $5,500 for those California engines out there, and this is going to be a better one. It's the latest thing, you know.
Well, what's your interest now? What do you see now that your hobby, and what are you going to do?
Flying's my hobby.
Just going to keep on flying, huh?
That's my hobby.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful.
I've seen these fellas say, now, when I get out of that place in 20 years, I'm going to retire, buddy. I'm going to retire.
You don't want to retire. You
imagine we were worrying about retiring 20 years from now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to work like that, would you?
No, I don't think so. I think if I could fly like you do, I don't think
no,
I'd go to the hobby.
anytime you get away from an airplane and go to do anything else, regardless of what, it makes flying seem so much easier.
Have you had a chance to watch any of the hang gliders?
No, we started to get into it. They formed a club out there, and we signed up to get into it, and they just folded up somewhere. I don't know what happened to it.
And you've never done any regular glider flying?
No, I've been wanting to. I planned if I run one, I'd put me 2 bicycle wheels on it and a tail skid, so I didn't want to have to use my back end to land with it. They laughed at me, but that's what...
You want to save those. Well, that wouldn't be very practical. I guess it'd cut down on the wind resistance.
If you got them light.
You think you could?
I know Herb Toomey worked for me during the war, then the FAA stole him. Then when he come out after the war, he's the chief flight test engineer for the FAA, testing all those jets for the airlines.
Yeah.
And then he was the chief projector on that big airplane that you turned down. You know that they're going to build. He went with Piper, and then he retired. Guess what he's done now?
I can't imagine.
He's bought him one of them $15,000 gliders down there.
Yeah.
And then he bought him a swing glider. He's up in Carolina, learning to fly it. And he's 73-year-old.
Is that right?
One of my friends come up that's with Herb. He said, you know what he's done? He's retired. He's up there now learning to fly that $1,000 swing glider.
Oh, yeah. That's where you don't have anything but your feet and your ankles.
He's 73-year-old.
You had a pretty tough group there. I think you must have got some of that from him, because you certainly haven't slowed down any.
I believe in flying. I've never scratched a finger flying an airplane.
Is that right?
Never scratched one little finger. I beat them off working on them.
Yeah.
You know, but never have scratched a finger. So I've got to believe in it.
I know a couple times you've landed that small plane right pretty close out there on the apron or on.
It's just like I said. You don't want to depend on numbers too much. You want to stay with one, because they'll get you. A lot of people get hurt fooling around. You know, think, well, I got it made. I'm an expert. But they get behind it, don't they?
Yeah, I think you're a pretty good example, though, that regardless of the age, if a man's got desire, that he can just do anything he wants to do. And your interest has certainly kept you young, and I know I've enjoyed being with you, flying and talking to you a lot. We call this hanger flying, but Elmer Wood's not a hanger flyer. He does some, but he does a lot of real flying, too. Well, Elmer, it's just been a great pleasure being with you today, and your pictures, I enjoyed seeing them, and I believe we could do another hour sometime. We get some more pictures. And
let me rest up a while.
Yeah, we'll let you rest up, and you ought to write a book. And
no, you don't know how rough it was from the beginning. Just struggling rough. I don't know whether I'll make it. Maybe I will, and just hang on and stay with it and hang on and just won't give up, you see.
Yeah, well, you've enjoyed it, too.
And finally, everything got straightened out. After we got Barmanstrom and things got moving, we started making money. From then on it went. But boy, it was rough to get up that far.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have had it any other way, now would you?
No, I wouldn't.
Had to live over again.
I wouldn't trade my experience for the best college educations in the world that I've learned
great
myself.
Fun. Well, I want to thank you.
I'd have been too smart if I'd went to college to be even fool with an airplane.
Yeah, maybe so. Thank you again, Elmer.
Okay.
And we want to thank our audience for being with us, and look forward to seeing Knoxville Scrapbook again when we present another of Knoxville's interesting people, and we look forward to having you with us.
Get you out there and get you in an airplane, I'll get even with you.
I'm afraid of you now. Yeah, you're liable.
Now, we miss you out there. Sure enough, you ought to come out and see us once. Old Dave says, where's he at? I said, he run out of tales to tell.
Yeah, he told all my stories. Yeah.
you. Thank you. I'm hoping to let I know, I have to send me 2 more.
Mr. Thomas Kershaw, esteemed money grabber, the best money grabber in the business.
I thought that was him. Who's going to introduce our program for tonight. The regular meeting's officially over.
Okay, the program tonight is memorial to Elmer Wood. A lot of us here knew Elmer, and for those of you who did, I hope you'll find this program kind of heartwarming. For those of you who didn't, I think you'll appreciate him a little bit more as the person he was from probably his closest friend, Ferris Thomas. Ferris?
Yeah, well, the first thing I've got here is some movies that I made of him stunting this airplane that he built over here. And they're on the back of this film. And I showed these earlier tonight, and everybody said I ought to show the whole thing because it's all about flying at least 15 years ago, and it's only about 12, 15 minutes long. And then I'll tell you about it. So somebody will turn the light off. The first pictures here is me towing a banner with a 120 Cessna. And the banner says, believe it or not, Wallace 68. So you can see when this was done. This was 20 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 68.
What's that at, Ferris?
Now see, somebody's holding the banner and there it goes, and it says Wallace 68. So that was 20 years ago.
If that'd been Roosevelt, you couldn't have carried it because you changed it.
Yeah, it's been a long, that 120 really wasn't built to throw a banner, I found out in towing banner. But there it goes. And a little further along in here, with pictures of old pictures of Montdale when I first started it, and there's a lot of pictures around here of the downrange, and Maurice Irwin is in it, and Will Wilson. And this was down at Chattanooga, Dallas Bay, in a '99 meeting, and all this is a picture of me at the Dead Stick Land. You'll see when you come around to see the place. So they were having a spot landing contest, and I went out and hit the spot where the propeller stopped. See it standing still there.
Wheel, that's it.
And now these pictures, we sold that airplane after we bought that Powermatic to a woman down in Greenville, Mississippi. And this is Ruth flying I'm in the Powermatic, and we're on the way to Greenville, Mississippi. And this was at Buffalo Shoulders. We stopped there for gas. And
Is that your paint job, Ferris?
yeah, I did that thing. During the time, we had that plane 24 years, and I bought it new, and I painted about 5 or 6 times during that time. And here, Ruth Landon at Greenwood, and you'll see us turning it over to the, and that's the worst thing I ever did in my life, to take it down there to the deck. Next time I'll keep it.
what it is now, Terry?
No, I have no idea.
I guess that paint job makes it a 1/3.
Yeah, and now inside, hey, the guys inside, the instrument panel was lavender and pink and candy carpet, and it was blue and oh, it had every color on the inside. Now this, the next few minutes here at the Sky Ranch.
Is that you doing that parachute jump there, Prince?
This is at the Sky Ranch, and I don't know who was doing it, but it was one of y'all get together.
A couple of Tom students.
Huh? A couple times too. With me, yeah. Shoot, that can't be. Yeah.
That's where we're at.
He's good for a round. We used to have them on picnic days.
Now there's Ed Wilson with his back to us. See, that's Ed Wilson with his
The
back
blue
to us.
shirt on?
And for the ones that don't know, Ed is dead. And that's Simmy. And there's Mark. And there's Steve Lewis. That's Sarge. And there's Kyle Maddox.
More conservative in the car.
Hey, there's Maurice in the center there.
Yeah.
Maurice Irving. And this is Smockville when the first, I've been working on it for about 6 months or so.
Who started that over?
You started? I did, yeah. And here it is, you see this, now that's my hangar there. And this is Russell Summers' hangar. Mike Centel was one that built it. And here is pictures of actually the first labor work that I did, and that is pouring the foundation for my hangar. Leading up to do this, I've done plenty of other work trying to get it going and trying to sell lots of stuff. But here I am pouring the foundation for my hangar. And Don Dugan took seat pictures.
Like me, of course, again. You always work in those kind of clothes?
Yeah. And there's my hangar, see, just nothing but a hangar. And here's a model I had that I built before I started all this. See, the model would all come apart. So there's the hangar and the bedrooms upstairs, and there's the roof for it, and then the living room on the other side, and there's the, there. And here it is, see, after I built the bedrooms on top, and winter come on, so I stopped till next spring and started again. Now here's all of the grading. See, the paved runway was a drag strip, and it was in good shape, but the ground around it didn't fit the runway. Here's where it didn't get it fit.
Got me looking woman on that.
Yeah. See, I had 3 of those pans down there. And they run 10 hours a day for 2 days and 5 hours the next day.
They're cheap, aren't they?
Yeah.
Cheaper than the nut.
Now, I don't know who that is taking on there.
I know who that is with the dirt too. Yes, sir.
That was Dugan's place.
Now, this is Jim Cliff coming in that old black 140. And And see, this was shortly after it graded. See how the muddy looking at me all around it, and the red dirt. And then notice there's no buildings. Now here's Leon Ryder. He finished his plane up, or at least he assembled it in my hangar in Test Hospital. And here you go down there to go. See, I haven't, this is before I built.
I didn't like that.
Is this the initial flight?
Yeah. And let me tell you something. He'd never flown anything. Well, he flown a 150 a little bit, but most of it was in a 140. And a 140 comes in real flat. And he's setting up awful high anyway, you see. And he almost scuttled it coming in on the first landing because he had it, well, actually headed uphill. And that last 10 feet, he felt like kind of brick, but it didn't hurt anything. And I forgot to tell him he ought to have the nose down on the plane like that. So much drag and everything won't glide like a slick airplane. See how I mean, it'd come down and look, he's just about 150, 200 feet down the runway down, it's already stopped. Actually, I should have told him, but I didn't realize that he'd never flown anything except a floating 140, and that thing didn't float. Now, there's Maurice in his life again. And here's the sky range. Look how, well, there's not any hangars. It's one hangar and a few airplanes. Oh, and this is Twin Beach down on our place when I first just graded it. And it belonged to Steve. And airline pilot flew it out, and all they were going to do is just fly it out, and I told them just put a little bit of gas in it. They filled all the tanks, it had fuselage tanks and nose tanks, and put 4 drums in the cabin, and you see it just barely made it off. And all they were going to do is fly over to the island to gas up. This great tank. That's a trip we're going to talk about. Yeah. Now this is Oshkosh. And I'm pretty sure this is 1975. B-17 taking off. And here's our shell looks right off the ground in the over. That's a chipmunk. I believe it had a bigger edge than that.
I believe it did.
Didn't use much oil.
It had inverted system too. I believe it. Yeah. The old similarity.
Now in there I've got a pretty good shot of a Lumsabot, or whatever you call it.
Chivok.
Yeah.
sick, turn that thing off.
Now this is up at Frederick, Maryland at an air race and air show, and there's a art show again, doing the same stuff he did at Oshkosh. Yeah, he got killed not too long ago in a, I don't know what it is.
That plane is now in the museum.
This plane here is?
That plane is in the museum at Oshkosh.
Yeah. Now, Elmer will be coming up here just shortly, and I want you to see, this airplane, he built from scratch with no plans and no nothing, and he was old, he was at least 70 years old when he was doing this flying, you'll see. Now here he goes, look at it. And I'm taking pictures from a 120 Cessna, and the fellow in the back here, John Keenan, was flying, and we were over on the other side of Maryland. Well, no, it's a one of a kind. But the wings do stagger a little bit, but they stagger forward, not rear.
Unless you're inverted. John?
Hey.
I think, Gary, I think Keenan was rolling around and Elmer was straight and level.
Yeah, Elmer's flying straight and Keenan's doing all that.
I tell you what, there's a place there in a minute where we thought that he had gone.
Oh, yeah, you'll see.
We thought he'd hit the power line.
Oh, we thought he hit, because all this was done real low.
Yeah, he never got up. He never got to 500 feet from the time he took off.
Now, we got that time, and the reason I didn't get it, it looked like he hit the ground, but it shook me up, so I cut it off early.
He hit the ground.
Hey, the very last thing, which will be coming up in a minute, is Mitchell Autopilot at Mineral Wells. And you land at the airport, taxi up to the highway, look up and down until there's no cars, and taxi across the highway to the factory. It's just a little short video on the left here.
That's not the one we bought from Elmer, is it?
Yeah, that's the one
that
we
is-
bought it from Gary. Yeah, now look here, yeah. So there's Elmer right there, and there's John Keenan that's flying my plane in the center. There's little Elmer. There's Sarah. See, here's Mitchell Autopilot. I'm sitting here, see the car went by. I gotta wait till there's no car so I can drive over, taxi over to it. Run over and get some work done on the autopilot. Now, that ought to be the end according to the word. Let's see. The Heartland series that Elmer's on, which we can show later. But I thought now I'd tell you about the first time I ever saw him and all the things that I was around him and he did. The first time, down at the old Southern Avenue Airport, which is where West High is, that was Knoxville Municipal Airport. And it had a narrow paved runway, not as big as ours out at Montvale. And it had one little hangar to hold about 4 airplanes, little airplanes. And the fellow that run it was named Hodges Briscoe, and he had a flying service. I don't think he even got paid by the city. I think they just let him operate it, but he was sort of manager and so on. And it was a cool day, and a whole bunch of us, old 7 or 8 people, sitting inside in the little lean-to office there, talking about airplanes, like you all do all the time, or some of you don't though. But anyhow, here come a fella walking around the bend, that he looked like he was out of the sticks, had never seen daylight before. He was really as countrified and as farmer guy as you have ever seen in your life. And he was carrying a bent metal propeller. And we saw it, and we said, where in the world did that guy get that thing? And we wondered if he even knew what it was. And he come walking on in, and we asked him, well, where in the world did you get that? And he told us that, and we didn't believe any of the first part. He said, it come off of my plane that I barnstormed with. And we said, your plane? Yeah, come off my plane. So we said, well, how did it come off? He said, well, I was taking off, and I was up about 1,500 feet climbing, and the engine froze up immediately, and the propeller screwed itself off, and it was a hellish jar when it screwed itself off. And he said, immediately, I thought the engine would come out, and I knew it would be out of balance with the engine out. And so immediately I nosed it straight down to get a lot of speed, hoping that I could get it down with no engine in it. And he said, on the way down I could see the engine was still there, so I thought, well, I'll just level off and find a place to land. So he leveled off. In the meantime, the propeller was going out like this, and he flew out, glided out under it, and the propeller fell down through the top wing and hit the struts on the side and bent the struts and went on and dropped on through the bottom wing, and it was the strut bent, the bottom wing folded up against the top wing, and he kicked him out a good field. He went down without damaging the airplane. And what he'd come down there for was to buy some dope. The cover was called, knock it down, dope, and get out. I forgot, this is a different age. But anyhow, on this Bristol, after hearing this story, and believe most of it, was the very fact that he knew that the engine fell out, it wouldn't fly and so on, so we knew that he knew a little bit about it. So he said, well, where are you operating out of now? And he said, oh, up here somewhere up close to the pond. He said, well, I'd like for you to come down here to our airport. And he said, yeah, he'd like to. And one reason, I just still didn't believe it and wanted to bring it down there just to see. And I just said, I don't think he'll ever be down here with that thing. Well, in about a month or so, he got that thing all fixed up. Here he come flying in with it, and then went back and towed his trailer that he lived in. It was just an old cargo trailer that he cut out windows in, and he had about a 1920 model Hudson car that the whole bed is off that he was towing it with, and he pulled it up there, and he stayed there until the municipal airport was built. And what he did was barnstorm all the time. This airplane was a biplane, like old three-place, two in front, open cockpit, and the pilot sat in the back. And it was a real cute little airplane. Well, it wasn't too little, and most of you know familiar with it. But anyhow, it was built in 1929. And I used to follow him out. I belonged to a club that had a 40 horsepower Cub. It was a Taylor Cub, E2. And I'd follow him out every Sunday and watch him barnstorm and everything, and I learned a whole lot from him, and of course listened to lots of stories. And then they started building the municipal airport, and they finished it up in '37. And he pulled his trailer and brought his plane over there and started operating off the municipal airport. And Sunday rising, the fellow that actually taught me to fly, started up a real good flying service. He bought 2 Cubs and all of these were new, 2 Cubs and a Aeronica K. It had a 2-cylinder engine on it, and he had a Stinson for hauling passenger. And so the 2 operators out there was Sonny with some nice airplanes and a nice office, and Elmer with one open cockpit airplane that about the only thing he could do was haul passengers. And at that time there was a lot of passenger hauling going on Sunday. So Elmer, that's about the only time he'd make any money at all is on Sunday, haul passengers all day long. And he operated off the ramp of the old terminal. Now, he'd load up there and take off on the ramp come in and land in the dirt just before he got to the ramp, taxi up on it, and load up with another little passenger. He never once taxied out to the runway in doing this. But anyhow, let's see, what was I going to tell you? Yeah, well, anyhow, all of us, well, Elmer would put on, when he had learned some of these little places, and also out there, if flying the business was a little slow, he'd put on a little air show for that airplane, and he could take that airplane, and see him flying it, it was like some of the best pilots flying a Pitts today. They're slow and sleek across there, slow rolls right down low, and it was, well, it was as exciting as seeing somebody fly a Pitts today. And all of us at about my age were just eating our heart out every day to want to fly that airplane. Because just sitting on the ground, it just looked like it was wanting to jump, see. And I just considered it the finest airplane there was, real controllable and everything. But he never would let any of us fly. I want to come back to that a little later. But anyhow, we're leading up to the war, and the government started what they call a CPT program. And they come into Knoxville. Oh, before that, I'll tell you, Elmer had a whole bunch of young, enthusiastic people that wanted to learn to fly hanging around because they liked to listen to his story. And they kept wanting him to get a cub or something so he could, and they'd learn to fly with it. And he didn't have the money, and they all got together and decided they'd pay for some flying in advance for him to make a down payment on a used cub. And he did. And first 3 or 4 months he liked to starve to death because all the flying was already paid for, and he was having to make payments on the plane. But finally he got over that and got it paid for, and had quite a bit of training going on with just that one airplane and passenger. But anyhow, then the government come in and wanted to start up a CPT program, and what it was going to be is to sort of train pilots because of the war scares coming on, and they were going to have 40 students at UT and 20 at Lincoln College, and they wanted, they come in and got me and Elmer together, and they said, you want to divide it up or however you want to do it, but here's what you got to have. You got to have airplane for every 10 students, and it's got to be almost new. I forgot how old, not, but just a year or two old, see. And I was sort of new in the business, and I had taken over the flying service at Sunday. So Sundays went with the FAA. And being real new in the business and young, and I didn't hardly have the guts to buy that many new airplanes. But Elmer didn't care. He didn't have anything to lose anyhow. So I said, Elmer, why don't you take UT and I'll take Maryland? He said, okay. So Elmer bought him 4 new Cubs. And he didn't have penny one, but he bought 4 new Cubs. And I already had let's see, I had a Ronica, and I think I bought a Cub. And we started out. And then rumors came around a little later that they were going to have an advanced course, and you need an acrobatic plane. Well, Elmer, when he heard that rumor, he just went out and ordered him a new one, PT-19, and that was before it was even called PT-19. It was just a first child trainer, see. He bought a brand new one, and everybody, all my buddies all over the country said, oh, Elmer's just had it. He's going to go broke. Buy an expensive plane like that, but they're not going to have any program like that. Well, in about a month or two, they come around and said, we're announcing a new program. We need an acrobatic program. And somebody has to buy a plane like so-and-so. Elmer says, I got one, so they give it to him. So then he bought him a UPF-7, brand new one of those. And I said, oh, he's not going to make it. Well, I'll tell you. And so in a few months, they come around and he increased the program to 10 more people, and he needed another plane. Well, then there was a scarcity of parachutes, and everybody said, the rumor was that you had to have parachutes and so on. So Elmer bought this room full of parachutes. And everybody, well, just a matter of time, old Elmer would go broke. And then they kept giving him more programs. Then he come along with a cross-country program. And you had to have a four-place airplane. And Elmer heard this rumor, so he bought one, an old used Stinson. And sure enough, they come on with that program. In the meantime, I didn't mind because I had all the business, see, nearly all of the private business I had then, because Elmer was just covered up with all this government business. And I was thinking he was going to go broke any minute anyhow, so I was satisfied. I had Maryville College, my 20 students over there, so, but in the meantime, Elmer decided he better get some more airplanes before they get too scarce, so he bought 4 or 5 more airplanes. And, well, to make a long story short, by the time the war started, this all started in 1940, in 2 years, well, less than 2 years, I'd say, before the war started, Elmer had about 50 airplanes, and he had about, 40 or 50 instructors, and he had this room full of parachutes, and he had everything you could think of. But anyhow, in the meantime, the war did start, and I closed my business up. At that time, I had the whole Island Airport leased, the whole thing, for $50 a month, and I had one hangar out to Municipal, and an office out there, and that cost me about another $50 a month. And I had a tri-motor Stinson that I was home pastored with. Elmer is still flying this open cockpit job with all this business. He is still home pastored in it. But I closed mine up because it looked like they were going to put us out of business, and I was going to get drafted and a few other things. I went to the service. And during the war, I flew everything there was to fly and had a ball, flew all the fighters and so on. And, but anyhow, when I come home, this is what I want to get to. When I come home, Elmer come to me and told me that he had sold that Waco to a fellow down at Memphis and wanted to know if I would take it down there. And here, all my buddies, my age, I mean, for 10 years we just drew this airplane, this real controllable airplane that you could just do anything in the book with. And I'm going to be the only one of us that gets to fly. The more you talk about being happy. So I load up in the thing, and I taxi out to the end of the runway, the short runway, taking off this way, and run her up and everything. And since I was used to real peppy airplane, you know, 51s and P-39s and P-40s and so on, and I knew not to throw it to it, you know, not to be too quick on a plane like that, real controllable like that. So I opened that throttle, I got to watch that nose real good, opened that throttle real slow, and I finally got it open. And I could tell there's something going on because I could hear some noise up in front. I looked out, and sure enough, it was moving. And I'm watching it like a hawk. And it's not doing anything vicious, but it just started in a nice, slow, easy left turn. Well, I didn't want to over-control it, so I'm not one of those, you know, get panicked, nothing like that. I measured in there about a half inch of right rudder. But by this time it's up to a fast walking speed, still turning the left. Then I thought I got to give it a little more. And I measured in about 1 more inch. And by this time it's up to a trot, and still turn left. And then I just hit the panic button. What the hell? I just threw the rudder all the way in there. Absolutely no change whatsoever. So by this time it's up to a slow run, but it's getting off the runway out there and bouncing all over the place, up and down and everything. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't. All my buddies back there, you know, I'm getting to fly more. They're just drooling because I got to fly and they didn't. So I taxied back. Elmer come out up there and he said, what's the matter? I said, Elmer, I can't fly. He said, oh yeah, you can. And I said, no, I can't, no fooling, I can't fly. He said, get up, it didn't have anything to do with it, but he says, get up in the front seat and I'll show you how to fly. I'll just go around, you can see how to fly and everything, and then you won't have to trouble. So we get out there, and he wasn't careful like I was. We get out there, throws the throttle right like that, and just as soon as he hits the throttle, he hit right rudder and backed off. Hit it and get it like that. Every time he come down, he said, see, he says, what you gotta do, he says, you gotta hit that rudder and dam the air up. Get it dammed up, and then come back and hit it again. So then I get out there and I got it all together. I didn't like him. I damned that air up there. The air was still there. But anyhow, I got up there headed for Memphis, and I feel the control. Unbelievable. It was same as not having any control. I've never seen and I fly along and I just sort of hold stick and I ease rudder in, full rudder. So it's just as strange as it is. But the funniest thing, when I finally did get to Memphis, I stopped at Nashville, I think, got some gas, and he sold it to an airline pilot. And I knew darn good and well the airline pilot was sort of like me, and I hated for him to get in all the trouble I did. So I started telling him all this stuff. And he listened and asked questions, and, well, I'm glad you told me all that. He jumped in, flew it like Elmer. He'd been flying all his life. Anyhow, the next thing that I recall Elmer doing, he did a lot of things in between, but in the meantime, when the war ended, he bought himself Stinson, Goldwyn Stinson, looked like new, and a Ryan ST. And those were, the Goldwyn was for his travel, personal travel, and the Ryan for stuff. And of course, he never did travel in it, and I never did see him fly the thing, because he never did travel in it. But anyhow, he took over the little grass field up at Bristol. This is, I'd say about 50 or 51. And he had that Ryan up there. And I happened to be, that particular summer, I was over at Mountain City dusting beans, and I heard they were going to have a little air show over here at Elmer Field. Elmer didn't have anything to do with the air show, they just used his field. Anyhow, I go see the air show, and there was a fella that they'd imported from somewhere, and a 450 Stearman, and he'd take off, and he'd go way on out of sight, and in a few minutes, we'd hear him coming from way up high, and come by there, just a blatting the whole field with shape, and he'd pull it up and make an old sloppy roll going real fast, and he'd go outside again, and he did that tour and come back by and do the same thing. And Elmer got madder by the minute. He said, that's not the way to put on there, so that's not the way to stuff. So he said, finally, when the guy started to come in land, Elmer said, give me a crank. He jumped in his ride. And the field, that field was not much bigger than this field. Elmer took off, climbed up about 300 feet, stayed inside the boundary, turned around, headed back, and he couldn't have been going to the cruising field. He got the center of the field. He chopped the throttle so hard it backbars and did the slowest slow roll you ever saw. Put the power back on it, made one the other way, did the same thing, and when he come out of the last and he didn't even put the power on, he sort of backed it in. Oh, the most vicious slip you ever saw. He got out and he said, now that's the way to do it. Then the next major thing that I remember him doing, he took over this field. And he operated for a while, and right out here where the hangar is now, he decided he'd build an airplane. He come out my house and talked to me about it, and I said, Elmer, I flew a Starduster 1. That was before they had the Starduster. I said, it was a good flying little airplane. Why don't you order the plans? He said, no, I think I'll just build one. So he goes out, gets him a trailer, and goes around the whole place around here, coming in with a whole bunch of pieces of airplanes, a whole bunch of Luscombe wings and parts and everything else. And he started out right in that hangar out there and built this airplane that you saw him do all that stuff in with no drawings whatsoever. And when he got, like the wings, for instance, after he got the fuselage, the fuselage, as he had these longerons going up here and welding up pieces in between it, and every now and then he'd get out and sort of look at it and say, you know, I need some more, so he put one or two more. And then he sawed it off, and then he got this Luscombe wing and tied it to the bottom of the fuselage and set it on a horse, and he got out and looked at it, and he said, right about here. And he sawed it off. That's the way he didn't even measure it. And when he got it done, when he got it almost done, I come out here one day, he said, hey, I've been waiting on you. He said, come here. He wouldn't let me go up to the plane. He took me way off for about 100 feet. He said, now look at that rudder fin. Don't you believe that's a little small? And I said, yeah, I believe it is, Elmer. It wouldn't hurt if it's just a little bit bigger. Well, next day I come out, and he made bigger. And that's the whole airplane was made like that. And it was, as you can see in the picture here, it was, workmanship was good. It's a beautiful plane. Had all new stuff that showed, new instruments and so on. Brand new airspeed indicator, brand new factory-made pitot with new lines going in and everything. And the inspectors come up to check it, and at that time they had to observe the first takeoff. And so they come up and they looked it over, and they made his first takeoff. He flew it around for a while and come in and let the son fly it second. And then he said, you want to fly it? And I said, oh, yeah. Of course I wanted to fly it, but I said, oh, you know, yeah, go ahead. So he loaded me up. And I just sort of thought I ought to ask him something, you know. And so the only thing I could think of, I called him over, and I said, he'd already cranked it. I said, what'd you bring it in at? He said, well, that airspeed's not hooked up. I said, why have you got it on there? Let's see, it's better. He said, yeah, they wouldn't. Okay, it looks Let's see, there ought to be something else you did. I can't think of it right now, so I'll just quit, and if you all want to see the Heartland series, which he is on, we can do that. You ready? Is it in there?
Just put your flag.
Yeah, here's the doodad. You gotta have this in it.
I put it on in there, he took it back
I
out.
took it out. I hate for it to stay in there hot.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I did.
Settled by men and women willing to risk everything for the promise of a new frontier. The pioneers we were about to meet were no different, but their frontier, that was something completely new. With effortless grace, they commanded the skies. Earthbound, we could only watch in envy and dream. We lacked grace and natural talent, that was clear, but we were determined. A pair of brothers from Ohio realized the dream, and we were earthbound no more. Suspended between life and death in a craft held together by fabric and prayer, we dared soar with eagles in a realm where nature and good sense said we did not belong.
these two airplanes come over Knoxville about 1920, and I was just about 6 years old, and I got me two clothespins, and I went for the next year or two, I went around with them.
Ferris Thomas's love affair with the skies had just begun. Model airplanes became such a consuming passion that by 1930, as a senior in high school, he was vying for the National Model Airplane Championship.
I turned mine loose there, and it flew 5 minutes and 24 seconds, which almost doubled the world's record at that time. And, of course, that made me even more eager to get into flying.
At that time, flying machines were only slightly more sophisticated than Ferris's models. They had no instruments and no brakes, and Ferris couldn't wait to fly one. His friend Elmer Wood had been flying for nearly a decade when Ferris soloed. With mechanical flight had come the freedom, but it was still short on grace and far from effortless.
Who taught you all how to fly? You taught yourself.
And Elmer did, over a field outside Detroit.
So I went down to Mr. Smith. We rented the field from him where we built the airport. I said, Mr. Smith, I want to borrow a plow line. And he said, what's a plow line? I said, something you steer mules with down in Tennessee. He said, I don't know about that, but I've got a taller rope. So I got back and I tied myself in real good in that dang thing with my safety belts. I knew I couldn't fall out, so I said, I'm going to learn to fly this thing or I'm going to quit. I knew the airplane wouldn't fall apart. I knew the worst thing I'd get into was a spin. I could get out of that, so I went up and that's where I learned to fly and do aerobatics.
During the Depression, Elmer took his plane and his stunts on the road as a barnstormer. Did people have money for that?
The farmers could always get 75 cents to ride.
See, back then, it was just like going to an outfit and riding a roller coaster, because airplanes were so new.
Mechanical flight had come into its own. It drew the big crowds, and it had even acquired grace. Ruth Thomas had fallen in love with a pilot and with flying. She soon became a racing champion.
As the races came along, the emphasis was, you are ladies flying an airplane. So we dressed, we were neat, we were courteous, we were ladies at all times, and we were ladies flying an airplane.
Pilots were a rare breed, drawn to the skies as if it were home. Their heroes were rarer still. After nearly 50 years, one man's spirit and his flight still inspire seasoned pilots. His name is Charles Lindbergh.
You couldn't taxi out with what he had nowadays, what he had on that airplane. And to think that in an airplane it would only cruise about 90 to 100 miles an hour, that he flew all the way from New York City nonstop to Paris, France, and that's one heck of a long ways.
It's hardly your imagination. Think of the things you could do. He wanted to do it. He had the airplane built so that he could do it. My goodness. I guess what man imagines he can do if he just keeps on after it.
Back when he was doing it, though, it was sort of like mountain climbers climbing a mountain. He flew it because the ocean was there.
For outward grace, the pioneers of flight respectfully bowed to nature. Rather, theirs was a grace of the spirit, harbored by men and women of daring who expanded our vision of what was possible. Seems like that we just weren't meant to be up there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the best place to be.
Grab you a spoon and a dish. Everybody, get around us. I want me food. Come on, Kevin, Amber.
The Heartland Series, a celebration of a people and their land.
Elmer Wood has spent his life moving into the wind. At 86, he still lives next door to his lifelong passion, airplanes. His good friend Ferris Thomas is absorbed by the same passion. He's built his whole life and even his home around it. Today on the Heartland Series, two of East Tennessee's earliest flyboys remember the 1930s and the glory days of barnstorming.
Why did people come out to get rides from you?
It was just something new. On Sunday, by golly, they'd just cover you up. You'd be surprised, wouldn't they, Ferris?
Had they seen airplanes before?
No, we'd get out in the country. We wouldn't fool the
Yeah, well, they hadn't seen him. It wouldn't be an airport. He'd just fly around
Get out
and
in the
find
dang country. They paid us $1 a piece there, boy. We were in high cotton, weren't we?
Yeah. See, back then, it was just like going to an outfit and riding a roller coaster because airplanes were so new. At that time, you couldn't have whipped them and kept them away from airports.
Did Elmer do aerobatics? Is that the word?
Well, yeah, he'd put on a little show to get the crowd started good.
You didn't have no maps or anything. You just got down in the bushes and prowled around and went where you was going, you know.
Yeah, and the airplane
You didn't have no charts, no nothing. No airspeeds, no compass. We didn't even have a compass.
No.
You flew in the clouds, the soup, it was called.
You'd get up the soup and fly a little needle and ball over here till you thought you were there. Then you'd go down and hunt the ground and then hunt the airport. Now, ain't that right, Ferris?
People get lost?
Lost? Oh. You was always lost if you got outside the airport.
While barnstorming in Alabama, Elmer got his fingers caught in a propeller, had to see a doctor.
I said, now, if you save them, how long before I can fly? He said, 5 months. I said, if you cut them off, how long? He said, 5 weeks. I said, you cut them off. I got an airplane out here in the woods. I can't, and a family.
About 20 years ago, Elmer wanted a biplane, so he built one himself, without blueprints.
On the wings, he'd got these Luskin spars and laid it on a horse, and he backed off and he says, now right along about here, and he sawed it off, and that's how he determined the length of it. And I flew the plane after it was finished. It was the best home-built flying I ever flew.
That's Elmer and his homemade plane. His buddy Ferris was flying right by his side, shooting the film.
Have either one of you ever wrecked in a plane?
No.
Well, at first, I think I had the guts to crack one up, but it was during the Depression and I couldn't afford it. And so by the time I got to the point where I could afford to crack one up, I was afraid to.
Ferris flew the world over, delivering every type of plane the United States used during World War II. His friend Elmer has trained thousands of pilots. He says there's none better than Ferris Thomas.
Everybody is overtrained nowadays. They end up with all kinds of theory, they can pass all kinds of written, but they don't know how to fly. There's not a handful of people that know how to land an airplane anymore. They just arrive. They just fly down until it jars, and then they shut it off. They say, we're bound to be here because it jars.
The Traveler spun off fast. Come right back and do a loop and then do a snap roll and come right around and set it in there. You see, them airplanes landed 20 miles an hour then, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
If you had any wind at all. You didn't have to. And you had to get it in there because you had no brakes. And they would ride.
Seems like that we just weren't meant to be up there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the best place to be.
The Heartland Series, a celebration of a people and their land.
It sure is nice to get up like birds do and get an overview of the earth, of the terrain you're flying over. Maybe that's
Ruth Thomas has been enjoying that overview for most of her life. It's a view she shared with her husband Ferris. When Ruth was 17, growing up in Strawberry Plains, she had a date to ride in an airplane. She fell in love with flying and with the pilot. She married the pilot and kept flying. Ruth joined the 99s, the women's flying organization, and she became a racing champion.
As the races came along, the emphasis was, you are ladies flying an airplane. So we dressed, we were neat, we were courteous, we were ladies at all times, and we were ladies flying an airplane.
When they come into Knoxville after flying all the way across the United States, they looked like we were going to a party.
During World War II, Ruth became the first female airway traffic controller in the country.
Did you have trouble fitting in? What
No.
was it like for a woman to be an air traffic controller?
I was a good airway traffic controller, so I was just one of the airway traffic controllers.
Ferris shares his wife's sense of independence. Since he was 6 years old, he's been captivated by the freedom of flight. He's built model airplanes that have broken world records. He even designed and built his own home, which also serves as a hangar.
I made the model strictly so she could understand what it looked like, because she couldn't understand the drawings.
That's what I mean by an overview. I need an overview. Then I can figure out the corners and so on.
Ruth and Ferris have been flying a straight course together for over 40 years, as a recent trip to Alaska demonstrates.
The way I plotted the course, I got a thread, actually, and I stretched it from Knoxville across that globe to Anchorage, Alaska. Then I looked on, I went up that string, and I go up about that far on it, and it says Davenport, Iowa. And I said, put down Davenport, Iowa. And up here it says Fargo, North Dakota. And she put down Fargo, and I said Regina, Saskatchewan. Then we got out our maps and drew lines on all those places. Then we flew what they call a great circle course, the straightest way you can go on the globe.
You know, today, fences all around airports. So what do you see? Whereas when we learned to fly, things were open. The gates were open. There was encouragement on all sides. Come on out, have a look. You take a small child, if he can go up and touch it, if someone will lift him in it, and it's small enough, it doesn't scare him off, he becomes fascinated with it. When the moonshots came along, I would love to have been up there looking back. You remember the first shot of the Earth from the moon? Ooh, I appreciated that. I think more than the people that took the shot to see it. There it was. We knew it was round, but there it was.
I just still like to look at the world. I've been looking at it for 54 years from up there and still enjoy looking at it.
I guess what man imagines he can do if he just keeps on after it.
They are kindred spirits, Ruth and Ferris Thomas, sharing a free and open sky. This is the Heartland Series.